The average salary in the 4 major sports leagues is north of $4 million. And let's take it a step further. Major League Baseball nearly topped $5 million as an average salary in 2024. Take a look at the NBA, north of $10 million. Now consider that number and consider this fact, that more than 70% of professional athletes will face financial hardship within 3 years of retirement. I mean, think about that for a second. 7 out of 10 guys will face financial hardship. You might be thinking to yourself, how is that even possible? Hey everyone, if we haven't met before, my name is Jacob Turner. I'm a former Major League Baseball player, and I'm currently the co-founder of Moment Private Wealth, where we help athletes and entrepreneurs get smarter with their money. In today's video, I'm going to be walking through something that was really important to me when I was playing. It's answering the age-old question, how much can I spend? But we're not just going to talk about how much we can spend. No, we're actually going to take it a step further. We're first going to understand the value of a dollar, and truly the value of a compounding dollar for a professional athlete. Then we're going to understand how we even think about spending. How do we get to the number that we can actually spend? And then what we're going to look through is a case study on if we did this the right way, what does it look like in the future? And if we did this the wrong way, what does it look like? Make sure you stay till the end because I think it's going to shock you. So whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're just looking to get smarter with your money, this video is for you. The first thing that I want to understand is what is the compounding value of this money? And look, this can apply to anybody, but the scenario that we're going to use is we're going to use it as a baseball player. And not only that, we're going to use it more specifically. We're going to use the compounding power of 1 year of MLB service time if you were just making the league minimum. All right, so the league minimum in Major League Baseball is $740,000. So if you take a look at this slide, what we're looking at here is $740,000, and we're saying our projected after-tax take-home, after agent fees, is about $509,000. Now, this is a really important factor to understand because a lot of times we see these big contracts that these athletes are signing, and while they're huge contracts, just cut it in half. After agent fees, after taxes, you can essentially just cut that in half. So in our scenario, we're not quite cutting it in half, but we're saying $509,000 is what we're going to take home after taxes. The next thing we're going to say is how much of that money are we actually going to be saving? And in this scenario, we're recommending that they save about 75% of it. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, traditional finance says that we should save about 15 or 20% of our income. And in fact, I would argue that if you're doing that in traditional financial planning, you're actually way ahead of the curve. You're probably in the 1% of people. If you're doing that as a professional athlete, you are very far behind the curve, and you are going to run the risk of future financial troubles. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. And what we're looking at here is we say there's no more money that's going into the investment portfolio. Okay, so just to recap, we made $740,000. That's MLB league minimum in 2024. We got about $509,000 after taxes, after agent fees as a take-home pay. And then what we said was we had 8% return on this money. So we returned about 8% on $381,000. The $381,000, that's the 75% of the $509,000 that we saved. We have a plan in place. We've optimized for our taxes. We have proper insurance coverages, and we have direction and protection for our money. The reason why I say that is it's easy to look at an investment calculator, but even to get to the point of being able to compound money like this, you have to have a plan in place in the first place. Back to the compounding. So if we take a look at this, at age 30, we'd have about $605,000. Okay, so we started investing this money at age 24. At age 40, we'd have about $1.3 million. At age 50, we'd have about $2.8 million. Age 60, about $6.095 million. Age 70, about $13.1 million. And age 80, almost $28 million. So what do I want you to take away from this? Some of you guys are probably thinking, well, I'm not a professional athlete. I didn't earn $740,000 last year. Some of you guys might be thinking, I am a professional athlete, but I didn't save that much. Really, the takeaway that I want us to understand from looking at this page is one thing. I want us to understand the value of a dollar. And I want us to understand the concept of compounding. And if we can do that at a young age, much like a professional athlete can, compounding can be incredible. But on the flip side of that, as an athlete, you can also run into what I call compound spending. So let's talk a little bit about how we actually think about spending. If we weren't just going to invest this money and let it sit there, no. We want to figure out, if we're a professional athlete, how much money could we actually spend? Before I talk through the specifics of this, I want to give you guys a couple key frameworks. Number one, when we think about spending for an athlete, we can't run out of money. All right, that's number one. We don't really want to be dipping into our snowball. Think about it like this. If you are a professional athlete and you're saving money, you're pushing this snowball up the hill, right? And when you get to the top, I want you to push the snowball over the hill and watch it pick up speed. And as it's picking up speed, it's going to be picking up more snow along the way, and we can take off little bits of snow. But the big thing that we want to avoid is we want to avoid taking off too much snow. And the reason for that's simple. If we deplete our snowball too much, we're not going to be able to spend off of it in the future. So let's take a look at how we think about this. On this slide, what you guys are looking at is this is a scenario of a $10 million contract. How much can we spend from a $10 million contract? Again, first thing we always want to start with is taxes and agent fees. So we have $10 million of total income, federal taxes estimated at about $3.8 million, state taxes, we're using Arizona as an example here. They have a flat state tax rate of 2.5%. So that's $250,000 for a total tax of about $4.1 million. Agent fees are about $500,000 or about 5% of the total contract, which leaves us with a total take-home pay of about $5.351 million. A lot of money. But really the question is not how much is going to hit your bank account, not what's going to come in after taxes, not what's going to come in after agent fees. No. What we want to understand is how much can we spend off this? So if we take our $5.315 million and we say, what is a safe withdrawal rate? And in this scenario, when I say a safe withdrawal rate, all I mean is how much can we spend off that snowball? Remember the analogy we used of the snowball and not deplete the snowball. Because remember, our number one rule is we don't want to run out of money. Now, let me just preface this and say there's a number of factors that go into this. Depending on how you invest money, how you think about spending, what you're going to spend today versus what you're going to spend in the future. But for simplicity's sake, and for this video, we're just going to use the 3% number. This is not a number that we use with every single one of our clients. And in fact, I would argue you could probably spend more than this. But if we use 3%, we're saying that on $5.351 million, there'd be about an annual income of about $160,000 or about $13,000 a month. A lot of money, a really good income. But when you're thinking about a $10 million contract, you're only spending $160,000 per year. And that's the thing I want us to understand here is when we look at this slide, if we're not going to run out of money, we have to be relatively conservative with this money. So although a $10 million contract is a ton of money, as an athlete, Lord willing, you have a lot of life left to live. And if our number one rule is we don't want to run out of money, we really have to be thinking about how are we going to use this $10 million? How are we going to position it to understand what is the baseline spending? Because remember what I said, we might not spend 3%. We could spend significantly more than that depending on what the circumstances look like. But from a baseline standpoint, if we spent 3%, I don't fear us running out of money from this snowball in the future. So when we ask that question, like, what can I spend? If you're an athlete out there, consider this. I want you to think about how much money you have saved. I just want you to multiply it by 3%. That's going to give you a baseline. Now, look, there's a ton of other factors to consider here. But the question you need to ask yourself is, if I get to that baseline, whatever it may be, can my lifestyle support that level of spending off the portfolio? Or would I need more money? Do I have enough money? Because I think that's the big thing that we need to be thinking about. With personal finance, we think of all these hard and fast rules, the 15%, the 20%. With an athlete, I only want us to think in terms of dollars. How many dollars do I have saved, which will then equate to how many dollars I can spend in the future? So we've talked a little bit about the power of compounding. We talked a little bit about what spending looks like. We talked about how 3% can be a nice baseline to think about based on our nest egg. Now I want us to talk through a case study. I want to show the value of doing this right on the upfront. And let me just preface this by saying the athletes that finish their careers with the most amount of money are not always the athletes that made the most amount of money during their careers. No. Usually the athletes that finish their careers with the most money are actually the people that just put a plan in place on the upfront. They started building the muscle of personal finance right from the start. They didn't think about it 5 years in, 10 years in, with 1 year left in their career. No, they thought about it the day they got drafted, how they could help maximize this money for the future. So let's take a look at a case study and understand what this actually looks like in terms of real dollars. What you guys are looking at here is a scenario between two athletes. On the left, athlete 1 saved 80% of their income over a 10-year playing career. On the right, athlete 2 only saved 20% of their income over a 10-year playing career. They both earned $30 million of career earnings. They both earned 8% from their investment portfolio. And they both spent different amounts of money during their career. Because remember, one saved 80% and one saved 20%. So I first want us to understand, we're going to cut the 30 million in half to 15 million. Okay, taxes and agent fees, easy math, we're just going to cut it in half. Now, player on the left, player 1, we'll call him, he spent $25,000 during his career, which led him to being able to save 80% of his money. Player 2, individual on the right here, spent $100,000 per month during his career. And that means they were only able to save 20% of their money. Okay, so let's take a look at what this actually looks like. If we start on the left-hand side, we can see that player 1 has $12 million saved after their 10-year career. Remember, they made 30. They had $15 million after taxes. They spent $3 million while they were playing, 10 years at $25,000 a month. They have $12 million left. They can spend about $30,000 per month based on our 3% rule. And if we think about that, they're actually able to spend more money in retirement than they were even when they were playing. So what an incredible outcome. You get done playing, and not only can you keep living the same lifestyle that you're living when you were playing, no, you can actually live a little bit better lifestyle. And then consider this. Take a look at this chart. You can see at age 40, they'd have about $19.5 million. They could spend about $48,000 per month. They'd have about $31 million at age 50, where they could spend about $80,000 per month. And then at age 60, they'd have $51.8 million, where they're spending about $129,000 per month. Now remember, there's a lot of factors that go into this. These numbers could be higher, these numbers could be lower based on how you potentially look to invest your money, which we're actually going to talk about here in a second. But the thing I want us to understand is look at the incredible value of compounding and doing this right on the upfront. They got to end their career in a phenomenal spot financially. They got to keep living the exact same lifestyle they wanted to, and they got to keep living a better lifestyle into the future. Now, let's compare and contrast that to player 2 on the right-hand side. Player 2, remember, he earned the same $30 million, but instead of only spending $25,000 a month during his career, he spent $100,000 per month during his career. And that led him to only having about saved 20% of his money when he got done playing. Well, 20% of my $15 million after taxes, after agent fees is only $3 million. We use our same 3% rule. That gives us about $7,500 per month in monthly spending. Now, let's do the quick math on this. We were spending $100,000 per month. So to give you guys context of what $100,000 per month lifestyle looks like, we're talking $1 million homes. We're talking new cars every single year. We might be talking private planes from time to time. A lot of things go into a $100,000 a month lifestyle. And now we're thinking about cutting it back to $7,500 per month. I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to be extremely hard for player 2 to do in this situation. In fact, I would argue it might be so hard that they might just say, I just don't want to do anything. I'd rather burn it to the ground than try to pull back my lifestyle. But this is the situation that I think a lot of athletes face, is they didn't do things right on the upfront, and now they're faced with the reality of, I can only spend $7,500 per month as opposed to $100,000 I was spending while the checks were coming in. And if you take a look at the compounding here, it goes from $3 to $4.8 million to $7.9 million to about $13 million. But remember, player 1 on the left-hand side at age 60 had north of $50 million. Player 2 at age 60 only had $12.9 million. Still a lot of money, but a striking difference. And this is why I always go back to helping athletes understand the value of compounding, especially for you as a young athlete. Getting this money at a young age is so incredibly valuable. Every dollar that you're able to save and invest is actually worth far more than you realize it's going to be worth, because it's part of that inevitable snowball that you're going to push down the hill at some point that you're going to want to start pulling snow off of. And if that snowball is big enough, you're going to be able to live an incredible lifestyle. So I want to leave you guys with one last bonus thing. I want you to think about, how do we think about investing this money for an athlete? Now, you might think investing money for an athlete is all about being on the cover of Forbes. And in a way, you might be right, because that's what you've seen. But I want to correct you. It's really not about that. What it's really about is making sure that you can live a really good lifestyle, and that we can go back to our rule number 1, that the money will always be there for us and that'll be protected. So there's a million different things you can invest in as an athlete, but there's really only 3 buckets that you can invest in. We think about this like this. Bucket 1 is our war chest. This is money that's always going to be there for us. It's going to earn us a little bit lower rate of return, but we know it's going to be there. Bucket 2 is our growth strategy. When we think about our growth strategy, we know this money is going to earn a good rate of return over a long period of time. We also know there's going to be some ups and downs, some fluctuations along the way. And then bucket 3 is our aspirational strategy, where we're saying, okay, what are the things that we can invest in that could get us an outsized rate of return, but we also know we're taking on significantly more risk. And the only thing I want you to understand as an athlete here is, remember, this video is mostly about spending. Before you ever get into bucket 3, you need to be able to support your lifestyle, whatever your monthly spending amount is, with money in buckets 1 and bucket 2. So before you try to get on the cover of Forbes with some bucket 3 investment, just remember this. Money is there as a tool. The investments are fuel to help you reach your goals. So until you've been able to reach your goals or your monthly spending with buckets 1 and 2, don't even think about bucket 3. Now, we've touched on a lot in this video. We've touched on the power of compounding. We've touched on the fact that athletes really struggle with money. 70+% of athletes are going broke. We've touched on the power of compounding early versus waiting. We talked through a case study. We talked through how athletes should think about spending. And what I want to leave you with is if you're an athlete out there, if you're an entrepreneur out there, if you're somebody that's just looking to get smarter with your money, what are some takeaways from this video? And I really want you to think about these 4 questions. Number 1, what does it cost to be you? Until you know how much money it costs to support the lifestyle that you're living today, you can't answer a lot of these other questions. We can't do really good planning. It all starts with understanding how much money am I spending today to live the lifestyle that I'm living. The next thing is understanding what your current savings rate is. And I like to understand this not just in a percentage basis. We use our example, we save 80% of our money, but also a dollar amount basis. If we're making $1 million a year, how many dollars from our $1 million are we actually saving? The next thing is, if you stop playing today or the check stopped coming in, maybe you sold a business, what would your lifestyle look like? And I think a good baseline starting point for a young individual to think about is taking the nest egg that you have, multiplying it by 3%. Now, look, it's a little bit conservative, but it's going to give you a baseline to start from. And the last thing is, after all those things, how is your money invested today? And no, I'm not talking about specific investments. Group your money into those 3 buckets we talked about: the war chest, the growth strategy, and the aspirational strategy. If you can do those things, you're going to have a lot better sense of what you can do with your money today and what you can do with your money in the future. Guys, every week I'm putting out educational videos to try to educate you around getting smarter with your money. So if you like this sort of stuff, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you like, and make sure you subscribe to the page. There's gonna be a lot of new content coming out, and I look forward to helping you get smarter with your money.